Okay, so today we are going to review synthetic and long division of polynomials. But before we do that, let's do a little bit of math review. So our first example today says that we have 1,597 divided by 6. So we're going to do old school long division like you learned when you were in elementary school. You would say 6 doesn't go into 1, but 6 goes into 15 2 times, and then 2 times 6 was 12, and you'd subtract. And then 15 minus 12 was 3, and you drop down your 9. Because 6 couldn't go into 3. So 6 goes into 39 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. You subtract. You get 3 again. 6 can't go into 3, so you would drop down your 7, and you would say 6 goes into 37 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36, subtract. So you first learned to write a remainder of 1, which then led to you writing 266 and 1/6, where you put the remainder over the thing you were dividing by, which is called the divisor. Okay, let's try another one. So our next problem says 7,349 divided by 12. So 12, 7,349. So 12 does not go into 7, so 12 goes into 73. 6 times 2 is 12, so 2, and then you carry 1. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 more was 7, and you subtract. And then you would get 1, and you would drop down your 4. 12 goes into 14 one time. 1 times 12 is 12, subtract. You get 2, and then you would drop down your 9. 12 goes into 29 2 times. 12 times 2 is 24. So you get a remainder of 5, or 612 with 5/12 as your leftover, your remainder. Okay, so now let's try some long division. Before I jump into a long division problem, I'm going to give you a couple key rules. This is for both the dividend and the divisor. The thing you're dividing by is the divider. The thing you're dividing into is called the dividend. So these are the rules you need to follow. You need to put the polynomial in order. Another way to say that is into standard form. So the powers should be in decreasing order. X to the 4th, x to the 3rd, x squared, x to the 0th, no x's. If you're missing a term, like you who don't have an x squared, you're going to fill in the missing terms with a 0. So these are 2 key rules you need to do before you start any problem, and I'm just going to give you a quick example. So if I had, for this one, if I was told f of x equals x to the 3rd minus 2x to the 6th plus 3x squared. That's not in order. You would have to rewrite it as f of x equals 2x to the 6th was the biggest power, plus my positive x squared, plus my my x cubed, plus my 3x squared. Same idea, same example down here, same problem. This thing is missing a bunch of terms, so we would write f of x. I'm taking this version down here because it's already in order, and once it's in order, we can fill in the missing terms. So we had an x to the 6th, but we have no x to the 5ths, no x to the 4ths. We have an x to the 3rd. We have an x squared, but we have no x's and no constant terms. So you have to add in those missing values. Okay, so let's do this. So our first problem is going to be x plus 5. That's our divisor. And our dividend, the thing we're dividing into, is x cubed plus 11x squared plus 39x plus 45. Before I start, I'm going to make sure it's all in order. It is, and I'm not missing anyone. Third, squared, 1, no x's. It's in order. Okay. My hint here is you really just want to pay attention to this first one up here and do the math with the first one. For example, what do I need to multiply by x by to make it become an x cubed? Well, you need to multiply by an x squared. And you're going to put that x squared above the x squared things. Putting it in the right places makes this problem work out much easier for you. So if it's an x squared, it goes above the squared stuff. X squared times my x is an x cubed. X squared times 5 is a positive 5x squared. This is where you're also going to be very careful because you're going to subtract the entire quantity, the entire thing. So this negative gets distributed into both things. So this becomes a negative x cubed and a negative 5x. So x cubed minus x cubed, these cancel out. If you're doing this right, that first term always has to cancel out. And if it doesn't, you didn't do something right. So this is an easy way to know that you're doing something correctly. 11x squared minus 5x squared is 6x squared. And then you're going to drop down your next term. And then you're going to play the same game or question again. What do you multiply x by to make it match my 6x squared? Well, to do that, you're going to multiply by definitely a 6 and an x. And you're going to put the x's above the x term. 6x times x is 6x squared. 6x times 5 is 30x. And then, just like before, you need to subtract this entire quantity. So this becomes a negative and a negative 30x. So 6x squared minus 6x squared is nothing. 39x minus 30x is a 9x. Drop down your 45. What do you multiply x by to make it become a 9x? Well, you multiply by a 9. 9 times x is 9x. 9 times 5 is 45. When you subtract this entire thing, the first one cancels out and this cancels out. So this has no remainder. That, in fancy terms, means that x plus 5 is a factor of my x cubed plus 11x squared plus 39x plus 45 because it goes in evenly. But just the simple answer to our division problem is x squared plus 6x plus 9. We'll get more into what's a factor and what's not after we finish reviewing division. Okay, let's try another one. Our next one says that I want to do x minus 3 divided into x cubed minus 27. And you need to stop and evaluate this problem because it's not having, well, it's in order, but it's not having all its missing terms. So x minus 3, those don't have any missing terms. But my x cubed is missing a 0x squared, a 0x, and then minus my 27. So to make x become an x cubed, you need to multiply by an x squared. X squared times x is x cubed. Negative 3 times x squared is negative 3x squared. Subtract the entire thing. So that makes this become a negative and a positive. So x cubed minus x cubed should cancel off. It does. And then 3x squared plus 3x, 0x squared plus 3x squared is a 3x squared. Drop down your 0x's. To make x look like 3x squared, you multiply by a 3x. 3x times x is a 3x squared. 3x times negative 3 makes a negative 9x. Subtract the entire thing. This becomes a negative and a positive. 3x squared minus 3x squared cancels off. 0x plus 9x is 9x, and then you drop down your negative 27. To make x become a 9x, you multiply by a 9. 9 times x is 9x. 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. When you subtract these, they both cancel out. So again, my remainder is 0. So x minus 3 would be a factor of x cubed minus 27. But my answer in just this case, because we just asked you to divide, would be x squared plus 3x plus 9. Okay, let's do another one. So the next one, I'm gonna make sure before I even write it down, I'm gonna put it in order and put in missing terms. So the outside the divisor, the 2x plus 1 is fine. But the inside piece is not in order. So you should write your 8x cubed first, then your 12x squared, then your 6x, and then your 5. And you're not missing anyone, but now it's in order. Okay, this is a little bit scary because we have a number, but we can do this. To make 2 become an 8, you have to multiply by a 4. And to make x become an x cubed, you need to multiply by an x squared. So how about a 4x squared? 4x squared times 2x is going to be 8x cubed. And then 1 times 4x squared is a 4x squared. Subtract the entire thing. So this becomes a negative and a negative. 8x cubed minus 8x cubed goes away. 12 minus 4 is 8x squared. Drop down your 6x. To make 2x become an 8x squared, 2 times something makes 8, that's a 4. And x times x makes my x squared. 4x times 2x makes an 8x squared, and then 4x times 1 is a 4x. Subtract your entire thing. Minus, minus. The first ones cancel off. 6x minus 4x is now a 2x, and you're going to drop down your plus 5. To make 2x become a 2x, you multiply by just a 1. 2x times 1 is 2x, and 2x times 1 is 1. Subtract your entire thing. Minus, minus. The first ones cancel out. 5 minus 1 is 4. So this is a remainder of 4. I'm going to shrink all of this really quick so I can write my answer. So my answer would be 4x squared plus 4x plus 1 plus 4 over 2x plus 1. You take your remainder and put it over your divisor. So there is your answer. Okay, last one of long division. I'm going to put it in order as I write it down. So my divisor, x squared minus my 2x minus my 3. That's in order, not missing anyone. We're good. The inside, x cubed plus 3x squared minus 13x minus 15. That's in order. Doesn't need anything added in or switched around, so we're good. To make x become an x cubed, you need to multiply by an x. X times x squared is x cubed. X times 2x is negative 2x squared. And x times negative 3 is a negative 3x. We subtract the entire thing. Negative, positive, positive. X cubed minus x cubed cancels off. 3x squared plus 2x squared makes a 5x squared. Negative 13 plus 3 is a negative 10x. And then you drop down your negative 15. To make x squared become a 5x squared, you multiply by a 5. 5 times x squared is 5x squared. 5 times negative 2x is a negative 10x. And 5 times negative 3 is a negative 15. These match. So when you subtract them, they are all going to cancel out, so your remainder is 0. So our answer is x plus 5. So hopefully that helps you a little bit, remembering some long division. Now we are going to move on and do synthetic division. The rules are the same. You have to put everything in order, and you have to add in your missing terms. But my special friend synthetic division, it has this one more rule. So same rules. And one more rule. It only works when you are dividing by a linear factor. What that means is your divisor, the thing you're dividing by, must be a line, a linear factor. So the things you're most familiar with is the x minus 3 or maybe an x plus 5. It does also work if you have something like 2x minus 1. That's a linear factor, but this is a very special situation. And here's why. When you did these top two right here, you would say 3 is your 0 and negative 5 is your 0. In this one right here, you have to do 2x minus 1 equals 0, and you have to solve. And x equals a half would be the 0, the thing that I'm going to say goes in the, quote, house. So let's set this up. So our first problem says we have x cubed minus 2x squared minus 22x plus 40. And this is divided by x minus 4. So it's in order. Missing terms. And then the last one here is linear factor. That's that thing. So because we meet all these qualifications, we can do what's called synthetic division. So make this a little bit smaller. So what you're going to do is, first of all, you're going to take your linear factor, x minus 4, and you set it equal to 0. So x equals 4. The x equals 4 is the thing that I put in the house. Then you take only the coefficients, the 1, the negative 2, the negative 22, and the positive 40, and we're going to write them across. So 1, negative 2, negative 22, positive 40. Then what we do, I'm going to draw a line. You're going to drop the first one down, so the 1 comes down. Below the line, you multiply. Above the line, you're going to add. So I'm going to do, below the line, it's 4 times whatever's down here. So 4 times 1 is 4. So I take my 4 that I just got and I put it right here. And then I add above the line. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. I'm going to multiply them below the line. So 2 times my 4 in my house is 8. Negative 22 plus 8 makes a negative 14. 4 times negative 14 is a negative 56. 40 plus negative 56 makes a negative 16, and this is your remainder. Now we need to make note of a couple things. Up here we start with a cubic. So when I come all the way down here, we have to go down a power because I factored out 1x. So an x cubed minus 1x power makes this an x squared thing. It should always go down by 1 because you're dividing by a linear factor. So my answer here is 1x squared plus 2x's minus 14 plus negative 16 over x minus 4, because you always take your remainder and put it over your divisor. So here is your answer. And I'm sure that you think the synthetic division is a lot easier, and it can be, but it's not always easier, first of all, and it only works in very special cases. My next one says that I have x cubed minus 5x squared minus 20x minus 32, and this is being divided by 8 plus x. So in my little house, that's this thing, is a negative 8, because I set that factor equal to 0. And when I do that, I get negative 8. And then I'm going to check my coefficients in front of my terms. So I got a 1, a negative 5, a negative 20, negative 32, and it's in order. Cubed, squared, x, no x's. So put my 1. So put my 1, my negative 5, my negative 20, my negative 32. You drop down your 1. 1 times negative 8 is negative 8. Negative 5 plus negative 8 is negative 13. 13 times 8 is 104, and a negative times a negative is a positive, so it's going to be a positive 104. Negative 20 plus 104 makes 84. These numbers are so big. 84 times 8 is 672, and it's going to be a negative because a positive times a negative is a negative. And then negative 672 plus 32 more is going to make negative 704 is my remainder. I started with a cubic. I took out 1x, so that makes this thing down here an x squared. So it should be 1x squared minus a 13x plus an 84 plus negative 704 over your divisor, the x plus 8. Okay, let's do one. The next one we have says x, oh, hang on, I prefer to write in the white, just easier to see. Next one says I have x to the 5th plus 6x to the 3rd minus 5x to the 4th plus 5x minus 15 divided by x minus 3. So I'm dividing by a linear factor, so I can do synthetic division. When I set this thing over here equal to 0, you get a 3 out. However, this is not in order. So let's take care of it. X to the 5th, well, it's in order, it's not in order, and it's missing things. Minus 5x to the 4th plus 6x cubed plus no x squareds. There are no x squareds in this statement. Plus my 5x minus my 15. So those are the coefficients of numbers I'm going to use. So a 1, a negative 5, a 6, a 0, a 5, and a negative 15. Drop your first number down and then multiply. 1 times 3 is 3. Negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. 6 minus 6 is nothing. 0 times 3 is nothing. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0. Oh, finally a number. 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. I get a remainder of 0. When you get a remainder of 0, that means this thing, the divisor, is a factor of what you're dividing into, the dividend. Up here, I started with an x to the 4th. I started with an x to the 5th and I divided out 1x. So this is going to become down here an x to the 4th. 1x to the 4th minus 2x to the 3rd. This would have been my x squared and this would have been my x. But I don't need to write them because I don't have any. And then plus my 5 at the end. So here is your final answer. Okay, last one for today. So I have x cubed minus my 27, which is being divided by the x minus 3. Linear factor, good, but I'm missing terms. This is really an x cubed plus a 0x squared plus a 0x minus 27 being divided by an x minus 3. And we did this on the other side, or on the other in your notes already with long division, so we better get the same answer. So my linear factor, this thing, tells me that x equals 3, so I put a 3 in here. 1, 0, 0, negative 27. Drop down the 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 0 plus 3 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 20. Oops. 9 times 3 is 27. Remainder is 0. So x squared plus 3x's plus a 9 is your answer with no remainder. Go ahead and take the time to read the next page in your notes. Just for an overview, yes, I know I'm asking you to read in math class. You can do it, kiddos. You can read. I know you can. And then in class, we will do some practice problems.